Episode 39 of the Tired Race Podcast here tonight. I am your host, Chris, joined alongside, as always, by my equally tired co-host, Kyle Cuthbertson.
What's up?
You ready for an hour or so of the most energetic podcast in the world? Well, Here
Exactly.
you are. Yes. I don't know what it is today. I just woke up from like an hour or so nap, so I shouldn't have anything to complain about. Kyle's been tired all day. Ran a
Today's one
red
of those
light.
days that just like sucks for no reason. You're just tired and just you don't know why it sucks, but it sucks.
But we had to do this, we couldn't leave you hanging. We got this whole weekly thing rolling with the exception of that 1 week that we didn't do it because I was doing homework, and it's very important that we stick to that schedule. So the first thing we're going to talk about today on Not Any Lighter News is the 24 Hours of Le Mans being postponed to August. I say it's not much lighter news, but I guess if we give it some context, it maybe can be viewed in a brighter light. Anyway, so the headline right here is that the 24 Hours of Le Mans will be postponed to August 21st and 22nd. The original date for that race was going to be June 12th through the 13th. And the test day will be postponed as well. Now, the thing that's interesting to note about that is this is the second year in a row that the 24 Hours of Le Mans has been postponed. Same reason as before, where last year it was postponed with the hope of being able to host fans. Obviously, the pandemic wasn't really improving by that point, like September-ish, whenever they postponed it to the middle of September. This year, same story, except we're in a little bit, I wouldn't say a little bit, we are in, we're in a more positive situation with the vaccine rollout, and they actually have their eyes on the ball this time, trying to get fans into the stands for this year's running. So, some things that are interesting about that, first of all, are that I guess we can talk about the other schedule changes for the World Endurance Championship, which is now that the 8 Hours of Portimao will not be the season opener. It has actually been moved to the June 13th date that Le Mans originally had, and that means the season opener will now be at Spa-Francorchamps, which means hopefully we once again we'll have Glickenhaus at the season opener. That's sort of been like an on and off thing, hasn't it? Where it's, Glickenhaus has said, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be there at the opener. No, we're not going to make it. We're going to try to like get more testing done on the car. Oh yeah, we're gonna do it again because the season start has been pushed back. Oh, we can't make that anymore. And now here, hopefully, they're going to be able to make the start again because the season opener will be at Spa, which Glickenhaus has already said they plan on running. So season opener Spa, like I said, will be May 1st now, as opposed to I think it was Easter Sunday, whatever day that'll be at the beginning of. I think it was the first weekend in April was the initial planned date for the 8 Hours of Portimao, and it just condenses the overall schedule up a little bit more for this season. Initial comments here rolling in. I do want to remind people, if this is your first time tuning in, that you can comment some questions and we can hopefully answer them. That's the point of this being a live podcast. And you can check out the not the postponed, but the recorded episode tomorrow night on podcasting platforms everywhere. Gam Wolfer said, "Woohoo! Hot summer racing at La Sarthe." Yeah, that's probably the biggest concern I've seen so far. Is the beginning of June, it's the beginning of the summer. I guess middle of June is the beginning of the summer, and you get a little bit cooler temperatures. August generally has a higher average temperature. Last year, the middle of September was probably more similar to what we would see in June. But yeah, certainly if they do have people in attendance, that's going to be a little bit of a hot one, I'd assume, for fans and drivers alike and crew members. So that may be a little bit different. Also, one thing to consider is that Le Mans every year traditionally is usually run around the summer solstice. So the nights there are extremely short. Last year, it was closer to a 50-50 balance between day and nighttime running. So actually, it was quite interesting because you usually have the sun visible at Le Mans until like 10:30 or 11 p.m. And last year, I don't have an exact time, but it certainly the nighttime was certainly longer than it usually is. And this year is going to be a little bit of the same story, although not quite as much. Macaulay Davis said they postponed it to figure out their own regs. Uh, I mean, maybe that's an offhand of it, but I don't really think that was the main purpose. Glickenhaus sounded great during testing. Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to talk about here. Was Glickenhaus just ran a couple of days testing at Monza, some high-speed testing in preparation for Le Mans. It's a pretty traditional move. Audi used to do the same thing where they would run their low downforce cars at Monza to get a grasp at how well they're running on that long straightaway. Glickenhaus was just doing the same thing, and yeah, there are some videos out on YouTube. You can check them out, and certainly I agree with you. That car sounds great. I've done a lot of talking so far, so Kyle, your opinions, if any, about Le Mans moving to August?
Man. I didn't really put it together on the Glickenhaus sound. I didn't really put it together until you mentioned it. And then once you did, I can never unhear it, that the Glickenhaus engine is actually from Rally, right?
Yes. Two rally engines bolted together.
Yeah.
Successful rally engines at that.
I didn't really put that together. Since you said that, and then I listened to it, it was like, yeah, of course. I can never unhear that now. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really expect Portimao to get, like, the actual start to the season to get pushed back. Just being from probably, like, a few weeks away now to now we gotta wait until June. So, I mean, that's a little depressing, but I mean, if Le Mans can have fans, I guess it's for the best. But then again, being an IndyCar fan, it's like I know about events being moved to have fans, and then that's still not happened, which makes it double depressing. So yeah, at least in June, there will be sports car racing to be watched, I guess is the silver lining here.
Correct. You mentioned IndyCar. That actually brings me on to the next subject, which was schedule conflicts, which are always great to talk about. Previously, there was no IMSA clash between the IMSA WeatherTech Championship and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And as it stands right now, VIR is supposed to be... Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Was VIR moved?
Yeah, it was moved.
It
IMSA
was
moved
moved.
races.
Okay. Because I was just about to say, like, I'm like talking, and then I was like, no, they moved it. They definitely moved VIR.
No, because Petit Le Mans, instead of being in October, it's basically moved a month into November. So we're gonna get another IMSA season that ends in November. And then VIR is now October 8th to the 10th.
Correct.
The only thing around that time is Laguna Seca is the 10th and 12th of September, which obviously should give them enough time.
Yes, you are right. So I caught myself real quick there because I do remember now that IMSA changed those dates around. Who didn't change anything yet was IndyCar because the 24 Hours of Le Mans conflicts with Gateway at the moment. But the original date of the 12th and the 13th clashed with the Detroit double anyways. So I'm not, too sure if IndyCar is going to make any change with that. The other race that I believe is standing in the way right now is the Suzuka 10 Hours, which obviously attracts a great amount of GT drivers. I haven't heard anything on that front at the moment about a date change for that race yet. Perhaps we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, just another thing to notice or to note for the 24 Hours of Le Mans having those schedule conflicts again.
IndyCar at Gateway is the 21st of August, so I don't believe we'll be seeing IndyCar drivers heading to Le Mans this year.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Gateway was in the way. I'm trying to think of drivers who would be affected by that. I mean, I know, Dixon used to do it with the Ford program, but he hasn't.
Bourdais might have.
Yeah, Bourdais possibly.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anybody else immediately right now that would be affected by that, unless Grosjean was going to try to. Actually, no. But, well, Gateway with Grosjean's kind of in the air, but hypothetically, if he ran Gateway, then if he had any prospects on running Le Mans, that would probably be out the window at the moment. But we'll have to see on that. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Because I think that covers that for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. This is why I need sort of a sheet list of things to talk about because I knew earlier I said, oh, I'm going to talk about that tonight, and then I completely forgot what
Did you
was
see
going on
the
with it.
SRX car announced?
I did see the SRX car was
What'd
announced.
you think?
Just on looks alone, I
Yeah.
thought it was pretty all right. I don't
Mm.
have any complaints with it.
It's
What
all
about
right.
you?
Hey, it's all right. It basically looks like a more squared off Thunderbird from the big wing Daytona. Not Thunderbird. What was that thing called? The Dodge Daytona, whatever it was. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just looks like a squared version of that. I bet it'll race good. Did you notice that they've had to put like a little like mini door on the side? There's like a It's
No,
weird
I haven't.
because instead of I mean, I find it kind of funny because obviously all the drivers are retired that they had to put a door. So instead of going through the window, it's like it's not even a door. It's just like a little tiny like piece on the top of the side of the car just to make the opening to get in the car a little bit bigger.
Hmm.
I found that a little interesting and funny.
Yeah, that's weird because it is a bespoke chassis, right?
I
Where
think
it's
so.
like I don't. That just seems like sort of a. I don't know. I don't know why they would have done that, but
Are you looking at that? Are you looking at the door?
I'm not looking at a picture right now. No,
Mm.
but
I thought that was funny.
Skipper said didn't TK do Le Mans a bunch of times? Yes, he did it twice in 17 and 18 with Ford.
I
One
think
of
every
those
driver
times
we've
was
mentioned is with Ford.
yeah.
Maybe we're just like upset that there's not another GT manufacturer and forgetting, but like Ford's not here. So
Yeah.
all of those drivers are probably in the clear.
Hey, on the note of IndyCar drivers doing sports cars, how about Jimmy Johnson and the 48 Ally Cadillac gang doing the not the World Endurance, doing the IMSA endurance rounds?
I like it. I think it's I like seeing I just to see Kobayashi in more IMSA races is just a blessing. I'm excited. I'm excited about that.
See that was news I almost forgot about because that was I think last Tuesday or something like
Hmm.
that was announced, and it's been a week since then, so I almost forgot about that. But yeah, Simon Pagenaud, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jimmy Johnson are going to be doing the remaining three IMSA WeatherTech endurance rounds, Michelin endurance rounds. That's what it's called. So that's pretty nice. I think that that's going to bring in more fan attention to those races than it usually would. Unfortunately, the 6 hours of the Glen usually gets pretty neglected with TV coverage. I've noticed on NBC. So hopefully, with a big name driver like that, we might get some improved coverage. But I'm not too optimistic on that front. But certainly, I think it is going to attract some more names for the events like Sebring, Petit Le Mans, and Watkins Glen, should they all run as planned. Is that at Sebring next? Yes, it is. So Sebring will be on.
You're going.
Pardon
You
me
don't
for
even
not knowing the
remember.
dates. What?
Like next week.
Yes, the 20th of March.
It's literally like
Yes,
next week. You're
yes. You
going. You're
you
just
you
like,
did you did
oh,
you did spill the beans that I am planning on going. Of course, everything is sort of everything is uncertain until I'm actually there at
I'm
this
still
point in time.
undecided.
But
The
yeah,
only difference is I don't have any like set like plans to go yet.
yeah. Expect maybe a small video about that. I don't think I'm gonna do any like pure sound stuff because I'm mainly there for the photography aspect of it. Which you can go check out my photos, chrisaurelio.com. I don't have a link anywhere. You probably don't know how to spell my last name, but it's out there. Uh,
Maybe someone to put in the description of your videos, right?
yeah, I probably
But you
should.
don't. But you don't.
Yeah, whatever. I'll,
YouTube
I'll, I'll
has
get a
this
card for it. I
interesting
have a card somewhere.
YouTube has this like interesting thing where you can like make the description. You can like put things in the description of your video that like are
Yeah,
always
I
there.
do.
You know, you don't even have to edit it, man.
I put your YouTube and maybe your Twitter in there. No, I don't think I put your Twitter. I just put your
And you put
YouTube.
the Rain Race podcast Twitter, which you
Yes.
should go follow.
Yeah. Something on the screen the whole time. All right. Hey, this is a news story that I just saw. Uh, Posted an hour ago by Nathan Brown out of the Indy Star that Top Gun Racing confirms plans for the 2021 Indy 500 with
Yeah, that's
sights
right. That
set on
makes
a
it
full
32.
2022 campaign. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, have you seen this story yet? First of all,
No.
oh, So I guess I'll just read because I'm just reading this as we're talking about this. But says work has been done over the past 24 months to put together a racing program run with the Penske's, Ganassis, and Andretti's of the world. Because they were planning on doing the 2020 Indy 500, right? It was 2020, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic probably halted those plans.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they didn't have a chassis. They like they were pretty ambitious, honestly. Like honestly, to start those because those plans, like they announced plans during the pandemic, had this whole idea that they were gonna run Indy because their announcement actually came like it was either like in May or it was literally after May. And when they announced they were going to do this, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, right." And everyone in that case was right. Because remember, Top Gun Racing actually started racing in the iRacing series. And that's where they had like the Haggerty sponsorship, and
Right.
RC Enerson was racing. That was like their car, and they were going to try and do some other races outside of Indy too. And so apparently, their plans have kind of just gotten moved to this year. They didn't even have a shop. They didn't have a chassis, but they just said that they were going to run Indy, which was funny. I believe Marshall Pruitt has a whole story on it. It's pretty funny. It's on his podcast, but he never wrote about it. But there's a backstory that's pretty funny that I thought was funny. But this year they have sponsor from the Navy, and it was because it was interesting. Remember when they announced Ed Carpenter Racing with the Chuck Yeager car for Connor?
Yeah.
And it had like the background. They used that like exact same render, but instead it's the Navy in Top Gun Racing.
Right.
So it's like pretty obvious what that is.
The other interesting thing I found out of this article right here is they're saying that it's going to be a technical alliance with an already established team. So like we're seeing Paretta is doing that with Penske and Shank is doing that with Andretti. I don't know if you have any ideas or speculation on who you think that could involve.
Well, probably Ed Carpenter if they have the Navy on board.
Right. And the only other thing I see right here.
Paretta got a sponsor today.
Yeah, I was going to move on to that in a little bit.
Oh, you're putting that one in the back pocket. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Well, Paretta didn't get a sponsor.
No, you can't just backpedal on that and lie.
Stay tuned for a couple minutes to see if they do or not.
Oh, no. Because... Yeah, the other thing I saw from this article is that RC Enerson will be doing the entry, or will be driving the entry from Top Gun Racing at the Indy 500. So definitely, I think an interesting pickup for them.
That gives us 32 entries on the preliminary lineup so far.
Yeah, and it's only March right now, so bump days return? Question mark.
I need to look into that more. I don't know how many entries are unconfirmed as of right now.
Yeah, that's where you got to break out the whole Excel spreadsheet that you and David always love to do.
I do that. Well, what's weird about these entry lists is a lot of times the reporters will cautiously add. Sometimes they'll cautiously add Dry and Reinbold, and sometimes they won't, because as we know with Dry and Reinbold racing, they don't announce they basically don't announce anything. Because I remember last year, obviously last year was I'm gonna say it, a different breed. But we literally found out about Hildebrand actually having the entry and being confirmed in by seeing some Facebook pictures of the garage sign. I don't think there was ever a quote official announcement on Hildebrand running that race. I think they just assumed he was, and then they just did it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I guess we can move on to answering the question that I'm sure everybody's just anxious to hear about Paretta Autosport's sponsor deal. Now that you sort of or I guess I threw it in the back pocket, but yeah, Paretta Autosport and Simona Di Silvestro will be sponsored by Moneyline for the Indianapolis 500. Now, Moneyline, the only thing I know about them is that they sponsored Penske's Xfinity cars, question mark?
They're on some cup cars too, I think, at some point.
All right, because
I
yeah,
think they
so
were on
that's
Kozlowski's car at some point.
I wouldn't know that, but I'm sure somebody in the comments could probably help us. So there's where you're seeing immediately that Penske tie-in. Obviously, as we just said a few minutes ago, Paretta is an alliance with Penske. Um, so yeah, I think that's nothing short of a great pickup. Obviously, a sponsor that
Here's an
has experience
interesting
with Penske.
tidbit that I know. Like that, so that car, I think everyone knows this is a Penske car, but that
Hmm.
is the Juncos chassis. Did you know that?
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's Juncos's car.
Hmm.
Which is, I don't, that's kind of sad. That's sad. I mean,
You guys looked so promising in 2018, 2019, where they like just started pouring more and more money into their
mhm.
racing programs, and I think it was a little bit of a surprise, but also not at the same time when they announced their Cadillac DPI program, and everybody's
Yeah,
like, "Oh wow, look at this! This is the small team that could," in terms of when they bumped Alonso out of the Indy 500, and then they were really just
yeah.
on a roll of positive news story after positive news story, and then I think the pandemic more than anything else really sort of just hurt them. But yeah, you're right. It's a big shame.
They're still running, lights,
Mm-hmm.
Indy Pro. I don't think they have USF, but they're still running lights in Indy Pro. Still doing stuff. Still have the shop behind SIK.
Right.
I was gonna say behind 1911, but 1911 Bar and Grill's closed.
Is that
Uh,
already close? I mean, this isn't really
yeah,
newsworthy
it's
for our
turning into a
podcast, but
it's turning into a pizza shop.
hmm.
So it's not all bad, but I'm gonna miss my. That's where I went to get pork tenderloin when it wasn't race weekend. Sad,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's gonna be a pizza place now, which karting and pizza. So I mean, I guess it gets as that's as casual usual as it gets. I don't know. I feel
I
like
really,
karting and pizza goes together,
I really
especially
shouldn't
those
like
rental places.
continue this because this is not really relevant to the podcast. But
Yeah,
is
it's
that?
relevant if you want it to be.
Well, yeah. There's a racing tie-in. Is that pizza shop still owned by Fisher, or is that completely like somebody rented out the space, or do you not know?
I think someone rented out the space. It's just the
Damn.
bottom part. You know how there were two levels.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
think the top level is still gonna be Fisher. They might turn that into something, but yeah, the pandemic shut down 1911 Grill.
Oh. Gimmelfer said Moneyline has been partners with Penske for 3 years. So yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I think it's a great pickup for them. A Penske level sponsor is nothing to be uh, certainly not upset about. I'm looking for a better word. I can't think I can find it, but it's something to be proud of, I'd say. And we'll have to see what comes of that entry. I think the alliance with Penske. I'm curious to see how much of a technical tie-in there is because that's the big thing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is how much of a technical tie-in in terms of shared data and really I'm curious how strong they'll be in qualifying.
Real question, is that gonna be? Are they gonna? I would imagine they'd be using which is real important, the Penske dampers and the data. Get to have Simona get to lean on Pagano and Power and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's especially the dampers though. It's a big key, especially for a new team like Shank would not be. I don't think Shank would be able to do the things that they do if they had to start their own damper R&D instead of just basically going off Andretti. So I mean that's the most important part. And obviously I think Penske, after seeing their pace last year, I think it's kind of interesting that bring in this other car with an alliance of a new team, and then you have another car, to get data off of. Which seeing Penske do that is definitely pretty rare.
Right. IndyCar has also been doing testing over the past week at Laguna Seca. I don't know if you have anything to highlight on that front, but Romain Grosjean uploaded a video to his YouTube channel. Actually, a pretty nice, brief YouTube video that explains, I think, to a more casual crowd, the basic differences between an Indy car over a lap and a Formula One car over a lap, mainly the
Hmm.
power steering or the lack of power steering in Indy car. And what I thought was really interesting is, people always say that Formula One cars are sort of point and shoot almost, like you can just turn the wheel and the car's not going to put up that much of a fight. But he really illustrated it really well in that video how it's a completely different driving technique when you're driving the two different cars, where you can't just like turn in hard and have the car stick guaranteed. So I would recommend checking that out. That was my one takeaway from the Laguna Seca test, because I don't believe we have any lap times still. So still awaiting on some confirm or like official lap times for this season in IndyCar.
So I think the biggest, like the most exciting thing about that test was obviously when Paulo
I
Montoya
was just about to say,
jumped in
yeah.
the car and Elio Castroneves jumped in his car for the first time, and McLaren was using those. What are the like metal sensors they put behind the rear wheels for aero
Oh, you mean
that they use in F1? What do they call those?
oh, the arrow? I don't know what they're called, but I
I don't know
know
the exact name.
they're like the grid fins almost. That's
Yeah.
the only way I can describe it. But that's a SpaceX term, not a not a racing term. But I do
They
know what you're
were,
talking about. Yeah.
yeah, they were trying to figure out aero. I thought that was interesting for a spec series. I thought that was something pretty interesting what they were trying to, what data they were trying to get out of that. But McLaren, you know, it's good for them to be using their resources that they have from F1 and the other categories they race in, and taking it in IndyCar. And obviously, Pato O'Ward was fastest in that session, I think, from like the unofficial times, by like 3/10, I believe, something like that. It was something big. He was testing the Juan Pablo Montoya was testing the 66 car, which we found out that he will actually be running the 86 at the Indy 500. I don't know what anniversary it is to the McLaren pole at Indy. The I believe it was Peter Revson, the number 86. I think it's like 50th anniversary, something like that. So I believe I would guess that we'd probably getting a nice throwback livery for Juan Pablo Montoya at the 500 this year, which is fun. We always love cool liveries, even though it's just paint on a car. It still gets us excited. We got Elio Castroneves in the '06, uh, which I think Juan Pablo Montoya, is he doing the GP?
No, because I just looked that up. I wanted to make sure, but yeah, as of right now, he's not doing the GP. So
Yeah.
that's why I was like, why was he running the test at a road
Uh,
course?
I, yeah,
Um,
I guess they just wanted the data, but I also thought about that in the back of my head. I'm like, is he even doing a road course? Why is he doing this?
yeah, Marshall Pruitt noted on Racer.com that Montoya was gathering aero mapping data for the team. So,
Yep.
he is still a McLaren test driver. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why are you sending him out there to test at a road course if he's running the oval? And that's it, as we know of right now. Unless McLaren has some secret plans to give him the GP treatment that we don't know about yet.
Imagine being
Um,
McLaren IndyCar and your testing driver is Juan Paulo Montoya. You just have him in your back pocket to go run laps.
oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Montoya still has a great deal of potential in an Indy car. You got to think his
Hmm.
second. Oh no, I'm sorry. He did run full time in 2007. Did he? Did he run full time in
No,
17?
he only
Yeah, he
did
ran.
he only did a one-off in 17.
Yeah, he did. Okay, so his last full time
Finished
season was
like fifth.
2016. In 16, he was, he
He
just
crashed.
edged out. Well, he was just edged out by Dixon in the championship in 15.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. That was the whole double points thing. Man,
mhm.
that was a weird year.
What do you mean the whole double points thing? They've always done that, except for
No,
last.
well, Dixon. Let's be clear. They've always done the double points, but in 2015, I don't think it ever came like as important as it did in 15. Because let's be clear, Dixon won that championship because of double points. If it weren't for double, like I don't think there was another championship like that. There's been championships where it's like they were probably only in contention mathematically because of double points, but like I don't think there's ever been a champion that won because there were double points. Because Dixon actually came in like third in the championship, I believe. And there was like one scenario where he won it, and that one scenario happened.
I guess the last IndyCar story slash bit of speculation this week, while we're already writing off stories from Marshall Pruitt, um, was another article he posted in Racer.com saying that Kobayashi has expressed interest in running IndyCar. I'd be curious to see what that means for his sports car plans in the future if he did such a move. He's already running in the Super Formula Championship over in Japan, which, I probably should because I hear it's a very good championship, but I don't follow the Super Formula Championship that much, and I'm not sure if they have any scheduling conflicts with the World Endurance Championship. I know other drivers like Andre Lauderer used to run. If not, he may still run full-time in that championship, although I don't think so, alongside the World Endurance Championship. And he's running, as we said earlier, full-time in the Michelin Endurance Cup for IMSA. So he already has his hands quite full. Certainly, if he wanted to run an IndyCar schedule, I think that would all but prevent him from doing, unless it was a limited time schedule, of course, I think it would all but prevent him from doing his LMP1 obligations with Toyota, where he's already probably their strongest driver. I think that you'd be hard-pressed to argue against that. But
yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that, but it was just worth noting.
I'd love to see at least a test to see what lap times he could put down.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd definitely be exciting.
Everybody kind of sleeps on Kamui Kobayashi until it's always like the Rolex 24, and then people are like, "Oh, yeah, we forget that this guy's an absolute monster in a high downforce car." Even races like Sebring or Petit, he's definitely strong, but and I noticed this with Le Mans as well back in 2017 when he set the lap record. That if you put him in a high downforce prototype, he's just one of, if not the best out there right now. So I think in an IndyCar, it would be very interesting to see how he runs. And he has Formula One experience in his past as well, so I think that would draw a lot of attention because right now he certainly has a great fan base in the United States just off his performance at Daytona over the past few years.
I mean, at the Rolex this year, I think around like midnight, I mean, he was the entertainment there.
Yeah, he'll put on a show when he hops in the car, especially if there's only a few hours to go, and then he's trying to run someone down. As unfortunately noted in the 2020 Rolex 24 when he pulled away from my beloved Mazdas in the final hours. What a shame. Every time. Surely you have something to bring up here, because I'm at a standstill. Oh, you know what I want to talk about? Okay, so Glickenhaus, earlier in the week, in their typical fashion of just sort of throwing bombs on Twitter, just said that they wanted to run a third entry at Le Mans, and in a joking-ish fashion, because everything that Glickenhaus says that you can take as a joke, you got to also anticipate it being serious. They wanted to, or they said they want to run a third car at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and the idea that they proposed initially was, hey, if you have a lot of money, $5 million to be exact, or I think 5 million euros to be exact, hand that over to us. We'll put your name on the car and all your stuff. You can sponsor the car. We'll run it for you. We'll get the drivers. And then after the race, you get to keep the car. So if it wins Le Mans, you get to keep a Le Mans winning car. Because the other thing to note with that car is that I'm not positive about the United States, but it's supposed to be road legal. I don't know if they've passed U.S. regulation to allow that here, but I think over in Europe it is road legal. Not that, if you have a Le Mans winning car, I don't think you'd be driving it to Walmart every day, but that was their plan initially, and then they said, all right, well, maybe this won't work out. Maybe there isn't going to be someone to toss $5 million at us right now. So then they came up with the
Well,
idea
it'd
of,
actually be $5.9 million
okay, five.
instead of euro.
Yeah, thanks for the conversion. Their second sort of proposal was, what if we have people who purchase stuff off our store online, but you can put their name on the car. So sort of a crowdfunding effort, but using their store to fund it, which
Are you gonna make 5 million euro
that's what I'm
off
trying to think.
merchandise?
Well, I mean, they have some $6,000 watches, I think, on their website, but then you have to think of how much those are actually being sold to them by the manufacturer and so on. I don't know, but
Listen,
I
listen,
certainly wish them success with it because a third car for Le
hold on.
Mans, we haven't seen.
Listen, listen, Glickenhaus. Okay, we'll cut you a deal. This is the Rain Race podcast, and you know our logo looks pretty solid, right? You can put that on your car, and I know 5 million euros is kind of what you're looking at. But, we're some like
How about 5 euros?
20-year-old kids. We'll shoot you $5 American to put the Rain Race podcast on your car.
And
Okay?
an exclusive on the podcast, which right now has
Yeah.
9 concurrent viewers.
And then you, Mr. James Glickenhaus, can come on the podcast, talk about it with us. And, yeah. You don't even have to give us the car after. $5.
Keep it.
I think it's a good deal.
I think you sold it really well there. Good job.
I learned from watching Shark Tank.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta go. Or you go hit up Marcus Lemonis, put Camping World on a Glickenhaus, and then he get to keep the car.
Hey. Maybe.
Someone pitched that to him.
Okay, so Gam Wolfers said, I thought the World Endurance Championship limited hypercar entries to 2 cars per team. I don't remember seeing anything about 2 cars per team, but was there a rule about you're not allowed to do one-off entries at Le Mans?
I don't think.
Because
well,
Glickenhaus wanted to run the 24 hours of Le Mans, but they were turned down because they weren't running the entire schedule. But, then again, I don't know. Here's the thing, all right? You have a hypercar, and let's just start this off by the fact that the World Endurance Championship and the ACO has made exceptions in the past for entries to Le Mans. So, if Glickenhaus walks up to him and says, hey, we have all this fan attention because we're running this very unconventional team here, and depending on their success in the World Endurance Championship leading up to then, we have a third car we're interested in running. It already has a ton of fan backing, possibly literally if they go through with that store funding idea. Then yeah, maybe they would consider it. I also don't know if the stream went down for a second because my thing just said no data for about 2 seconds. So hopefully you heard all of that. But just in case you didn't, I was basically saying that I think the ACO would be hard pressed to turn that down based on the exceptions that they've given in the past. Garage 59 car, maybe? Well, okay, so Garage 56 was like their technical initiative that they ran in the past. I don't think the car would fit under that per se. Where you had the Delta Wing initially ran under that, the Zeod RC, which was the first all-electric lap at Le Mans car that only did like 24 minutes in the race, that one. And then you had the quadruple amputee driver in 2016. So I don't think it would fit in that category if that's what you're referring to. But we'll have to see. I certainly wish them well with that because everybody wants a third entry from Glickenhaus, I think. And I'd be interested to see what drivers they would try to pull with that. So we'll have to wait and see. Just something to note for now that they have expressed interest in doing it. So we'll follow that story as we get details, if there are any. I guess we'll...
So Rico92 asked, how would we redo the IndyCar schedule?
Add a race to the northeast.
I thought this would be something interesting to do. Okay, so bring up the schedule,
All right.
and I'll go first. Let's basically now I'm gonna say here is you can add tracks. You can add tracks, and just basically how would you do the schedule? So
Um,
first, I
are
said
you
I
gonna
go
go
first.
first? Okay. All right.
Tell me. But okay, so I would start the season at St. Petersburg. I think it's perfect. It's a great venue. I went to my first St. Pete Grand Prix last year. Technically I went to two of them, but yeah, I think it's a good way to start. And then next I'd go. I liked Barber where it was. Um, and then for a third race, obviously I would like the season to start in March. So I think third race you'd probably be going into April. I would add, um, let's say we bring, Coda back. I didn't think that was a bad race when it happened. I think April's probably a good time for it. Because obviously you're just trying to get a few events before the 500. Um, and then I would say Long Beach. So then basically you have, first race at the end of March. Then you got three races in April. First week of May, you take a off week the first week. But like in that first week of May, you should actually do something with it and like start media for the 500 right away, and then do the GP. Because that first week of May, it's like, hey, it's the month of May, and then but it's just like it's already May, and you have to wait a week into May. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then you do the Grand Prix qualifying Indy 500, and then after the 500, um, I would say, I mean, I'm kind of torn on giving them an off week after the 500 and going straight, after, because that's something that they've done. Because I think they get an off week this week because if I'm not mistaken, the weekend after the 500 this year is going to be IMSA at Detroit, and then the weekend after IMSA to Detroit is IndyCar because it's not like a doubleheader anymore for IMSA and IndyCar. But no matter if you give them a week break or you go back to back, let's leave the 500 and let's go to Gateway. I think that Gateway is promoted throughout May so well. It's so close to Indy, you know, and plus, I think the 500 should be followed up by an oval. Um, and then after Gateway, let's go to Road America. I love that race in June. And then let's go to Detroit. Let's go. So that gives us 3 weeks.
You keeping the doubleheader at Detroit?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after Detroit, let's go to Iowa. And here's what I want to do with Iowa. One, it needs to come back, obviously. Two, I loved what they did last year. I know it was a COVID thing doing the doubleheader, but like that Friday night IndyCar race was great. I loved having a Friday night IndyCar race. It was great. But you don't want to get rid of the Saturday night race, so do the doubleheader again. I thought that was the Iowa doubleheader probably worked best as far as the doubleheaders last year went, honestly. And it's a shame they're not going back. And after Iowa, we're gonna go into July 4th weekend. Let's go to Nashville for the Music City GP. Because July 4th weekend. Let's do that. Why not? I would guess a street race July 4th weekend might not work though. But again, this is my schedule. Then let's go to Toronto. Let's go to. I don't really. There's some races I'm thinking of in my head that I don't really want to be in the middle of the summer. So after Toronto, go to kind of torn here. Races that they stopped going to that I loved.
A race in the Northeast.
I'm getting there. Okay, no, let's go to Texas in the middle of July. Add another oval in there. And then in their original date, not July 4th date, let's go to Mid Ohio. I think like last week in July, first weekend of August. That kind of like in between weekend is probably, I think that's the best weekend for that event. And then after Mid Ohio, we've already done that. We've already done that. What are we doing next? Let's go to man, what's one we can't go to right now? What's another Northeast race we can do?
Sorry,
I
I've
have
been
one.
very loosely following this, but did you say Watkins Glen?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Did you say Pocono?
Oh shoot, let's go to Pocono after Mid Ohio. Thank you. Let's go to Pocono. Then let's go to Portland. Let's go to Laguna Seca, and then let's end. Oh frick. Okay, no, we'll do this for 1 year. If this was happening like this year or next year, because I doubt it's going to change. Let's end the season at Auto Club, even though because I remember right when I thought it, I remember they're turning into a short track, and that just won't work. So you know what? Screw it. If this is like a next year schedule, let's go to Auto Club. I think it's a good way to end the season. Do a night race too to make Auto Club happy.
All right. That's what you got?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that? Oh wait,
Um,
no,
it
Watkins Glen after um Laguna Seca. Because Portland and Laguna Seca should be together, like do a little West Coast swing.
You
You
know,
know,
it was
but
a little conservative, but it was also a little bit realistic, which is
yeah.
I'm gonna go a little bit more out wild here. Um, so I agree with you. Start at St. Pete. I think that's a great track for the season opener. I'd go to Barber. Um, Texas. Would I keep Texas in the spring? Yeah, I'd keep Texas in the spring, but I don't think I would keep it a double header. I'd just do one race at Texas. Um, and then you have the GP of Indy, which some people might say just get rid of it. I'll just say whatever, just keep it. If you're a hater of it, it's whatever. I don't hate that race. It does put on some action. I can't say I'm swinging either way with that one. Indy 500 obviously to close out the month. Detroit, I would like to see that go back as an IMSA doubleheader. I'd like to see IMSA and IndyCar racing side by side there. Because right now I just don't see that much. Right now they're running on different weeks. I don't know what you're going to gain from that. If anything, you're just going to be losing fans on both parties. But so that's the only change I would make to Detroit. Road America, yeah, I have no problems with that. Let's start adding some stuff in here though. I would say probably let's say after Road America. Which first of all, the thing I was going to say, so they have 17 races right now. I'd say try to bump it up to 18. So I already got rid of one of the Texas races. So that means after Mid Ohio is over, I'm done. Or no, after Road America, I've done 8 races, I believe. So then let's shake it up because I want more races in the Northeast, and I've argued this before that, and it's controversial, but I think New Hampshire Motor Speedway could be better suited for IndyCar than it is for NASCAR. I'm not going to say it would put on a fantastic race, but I also don't think Texas throws on a fantastic race. So let's throw
You're
that
right.
there.
You're right. Look at what wheel and modifieds do.
Mm-hmm.
Open wheel series. I guess you can go wheel and modifieds open wheel. But they're basically like flat out there, correct? And it's just excellent.
Well,
Then
okay,
again,
so
they
my argument with that is like,
it'd be cool.
look at Gateway. IndyCar does well with those proper oval shaped ovals as opposed to like, Iowa's not a bad race. I used to have a lot of hate, not a lot of hate, but I used to have a slight grudge against Iowa.
Crap on that race all the time.
Sometimes you're right. Toronto. Yeah, we'll keep Toronto in there.
Why would you not? It's like
Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
most
yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's like there with like Long Beach on road course, like street courses.
So the Music City Grand Prix, I think that I'm gonna keep that just based on the fact that it's because we haven't seen a race there yet, so we have no idea how it's gonna race. But that one, I think that they're putting on a lot of stuff off the racetrack for that event. That's going to make it interesting to people who aren't necessarily fans of IndyCar.
Dude, Dale Jr.'s on the board, dude.
Second Indy road course race, nah, scrap it. Replace it with Watkins Glen, because I think that that was a pretty good race. Trying to think of like another. People are going to
Wait,
say they
what
want
did you just
more
say?
ovals in here.
What'd you just say, Scrap?
The second Indy road course race, August.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good.
Um, so Portland. Oh wait, you know what? I just realized. So okay, so the Grand Prix of Long Beach is right now this season is the finale. So I forgot to talk about that one. Let's move that one back up towards the third round, like it more traditionally was. So after, in between Barber and Texas, let's throw Long Beach, and then let's put. I didn't say Portland yet.
You also haven't said Mid Ohio.
Yes, I did. I think I did. If I didn't say Mid Ohio, then after Road America, where it already is, because that's whatever. Or is there somewhere else we could go better on? You know what? No. Switch Mid Ohio and Nashville around, because I think Nashville on 4th of July weekend would be really cool.
You agree with me on something.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even remember that you said that. So now we did Portland, Laguna Seca. Would you like to see Coda back? I don't know if you said Coda, because again, I was
I
half
said
paying
Coda.
attention.
I
All
said
right.
it in the beginning of the year after Barber, like third race of the year.
Yeah,
Where
I
it
might be
was when it was in the series.
I may be breaking my 18 race policy here, but I wouldn't mind seeing Coda as well. I think towards the end of this season would work better for it, but I'm trying to like split it up. The only thing I'm going to say right now is I want Gateway to be the finale.
Mm.
So let's just say Portland, Laguna Seca, Coda, and then Gateway for the finale. And if I could go really ambitious, I would say Gold Coast alongside Supercars in October. But
Did you even say any Northeast tracks?
I did. I said Watkins Glen and Loudon.
You wouldn't go back to Pocono.
Shit, I forgot about Pocono. All right, well, okay, so let's see. Is there any race I would scrap for Pocono? I would on this
Personally,
schedule.
off your schedule, I would go Pocono instead of Coda.
Yeah, what the hell? I think you could probably pull that off, yeah. Because I was looking for an oval to throw in the middle there. But
Gateway does work as a season ender. I will say that.
it
I just
would.
want to see Indy followed up by an oval because you get all this momentum build up by the 500, and then you usually follow it up with like a you get like an average Detroit race. I mean, sometimes they're really good, but like when you're going from the 500 to Detroit, I feel like it doesn't do as much. Then again, you could have a super boring gateway race that just turns you off ovals, but I mean,
Well, it has to be night. Prime time.
obviously.
Prime time IndyCar finale. Right now, the IndyCar finale, I think that's the biggest problem I have with it. And there's not much you can do. You can't run Laguna Seca under the lights, but
I didn't care for Laguna Seca as the ender. I didn't care. I didn't like Sonoma. I
no.
don't because the other thing I don't really agree with is IndyCar. While they yeah, you have to go run races on the West Coast. Like, let's be real, your fan base is the Midwest, and it's the same thing as NASCAR, like doing it in Phoenix. It's like, your like most of your fans are in the Midwest, or for NASCAR, the South. It's like, why are you doing these races on the West Coast? I guess for the hardcore fans that do want to make a trip out to the West Coast, they get a nice little, you know, California getaway. But I mean, like, not everyone, like, if you do it at Gateway, you'll absolutely pack the stands. And then again, I did say Auto Club, but I think
Right.
Auto Club, you know, you do that race in September, October,
What if Auto
under
Club
the
gets that
lights.
NASCAR treatment though?
What do you mean?
The short track racing
Oh yeah,
Auto Club.
no, that's why I got mad because I forgot that was happening. That's why. I mean, yeah. I mean, another thing I wanted to once we got done with this, one thing I wanted to say is like, because obviously your schedule was pretty realistic and so was mine, but like, what tracks that like probably aren't really realistic would you bring to IndyCar? But like, it's just something you'd want. Because
Gold Coast.
I'd say Milwaukee, Cleveland, Michigan, um, Road Atlanta, which Road Atlanta is probably this
Road Atlanta
most,
is too fast for IndyCar.
yeah. And if like someone at one point tried to say that F1 should run there, and it's like, well, they could,
Mm.
but they would ruin the track. And if you've ever been to Road Atlanta and you've seen like just how cool that place is, the way that they would like safety or rise that place, it's a word now, I said it. The way they would do, do that place, it just would not be as cool, I guess. So I mean that can't happen. But if you brought IndyCars to Atlanta, long story short, you'd probably have a car in the woods after a while. Um,
What about like VIR?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Same story, I think, with VIR as Road Atlanta. I think it's a little bit too fat.
mm,
Who knows?
there's
But
a lot. There's a ton of runoff at VIR though, like a ton. Like so much, they might have a wall there now, but on the left side of the front straight, if you ever notice, it's just a gigantic field, and I think it just leads into the woods because they just expect nobody to even make it out that far. They might have added a wall now, but when I raced there, I think even after the repave, they were just on the left side. There wasn't a wall; it was just a long, wide section of grass and then woods. And then going into one, there's a ton of runoff. There's a few areas where like the walls kind of close in, but then again, like they're not like in high speed sections.
all right, I got a couple questions to answer here. Because Gam Wolfers asked, would you add the Daytona Road Course since NASCAR goes to Indy? People have thrown that idea around a little bit, and I don't think it would be as exciting as people expect.
Yeah.
Because the Daytona Road Course is just too flat out for Indy cars, I think.
Yeah.
Um, the Charlotte Roval would be more interesting, but even that, it's like if you design that, the Charlotte Road Course is more of like a NASCAR designed
Oh
track,
yeah, that
whereas
that track is
Daytona was
meant for
just,
a stock car
yeah.
to
Whereas
go
if
around there.
Daytona was adapted with the shit chicane.
You
um,
saw when Newgarden did those laps, like he was like flying.
yeah.
Basically,
Um,
I don't know how what the slowest speed around that track was probably the back straight chicane, but like I think it's probably too fast. Not at a point where it'd be too dangerous, but at a point where like I don't think the racing would be as good as you think.
yeah. That's what I said. The same story with Daytona would be. I think that track is. I don't know. Maybe I'd be wrong, but I don't see any reason
Because
why
you wouldn't
IndyCar would
get
want to
like
go
as
there.
much like slipstreaming around the banking as you'd think you'd get because you
Hmm.
know that they'd add like a bunch of chicanes more than just the NASCAR one. Probably they probably do something else. They don't want them going
Um,
that fast.
Rico suggested go down to Mexico at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. That would be an interesting one.
That's a
F1, I
good
think, puts
track.
on a good show there.
That's one of those tracks like Coda where it's really wide and like so like these newer F1 tracks, which I guess Coda probably wasn't made with the knowledge that F1 was going to become like wider, but like you can tell with a lot of the newer F1 tracks that they're really wide because the F1 cars are really wide. And so when you stick an Indy car there, which is why Coda NASCAR is going to be entertaining because like it's so wide that it just creates, really good racing. And with Hermanos Rodriguez having so many 90-degree corners and like no elevation, it would just be it'd be something to watch.
Macaulay Davies asks, how is IndyCar racing compared to F1 in terms of road course races, such as battles, dirty air, and so on? The main thing to note with IndyCar is they've worked hard with this newer car to get rid of, or not get rid of, but like lessen the effects of dirty air because that was a bigger problem with the aero kits, the manufacturer aero kits from 2015 to 2017. Um, F1 has that same issue themselves right now. That's what they're trying to fix with the 2022 cars. But the problem with F1 is that the majority of their overtakes are under DRS, and
Hmm.
the other series I talked about in the last podcast that has an issue with dirty air is supercars right now. So everybody everybody right now is sort of, and NASCAR too, is in a problem with dirty air, and they're all trying to fix it with new cars. And we'll have to see. I think IndyCars was pretty effective, I'd say.
Yeah, they did a great job. Like right off the bat,
Although,
St. Pete 2018, and you just
yeah,
tell the difference.
although you could argue at ovals, it's maybe even a little bit worse depending on your
Oh, they
definition
messed
of a
up on
good
ovals.
race. But
They messed up on ovals.
yeah,
There's just not enough. It's not like because that's kind of what I mean. N Not everyone agrees with it because everyone would rather see like the DW12 bodywork where they were just slipstreaming by every lap, and it kind of just became like a snake pack race. But I kind of prefer the less downforce, where it's kind of like the best setup and the cleanest race wins. Where it's not just an easy, get on the back of someone and slipstream by and trade positions every single lap, and it's just a mental battle of like when do you pass them on what lap. I'd rather, best setup, best car, best driver, rather than just basically a pack race in a single file line. But
mm-hmm.
what they've done is they basically have just not given them like enough options as far as it comes to adding downforce. Like the window between no downforce and full downforce just is too small. Whereas, obviously with the manufacturer kits and then with I think also with the DW12 had way more options. And so when you get in dirty air and you have less downforce, obviously you have to back off a lot more. And there's more understeer, more, and then, to try and compensate with that, to put more downforce in, you don't have much option. So pretty much everybody, like in 2018, I think almost everybody was, max downforce because of how hot it was. And we saw how that race was. I mean, apparently they're going to be testing, which I'm going to try and be at least one of the days because I'm going to be going to a dirt race at Kokomo the same days. There's a test at IMS like the 8th, and apparently they're going to be testing a new floor on the ovals.
Huh.
It's something Colton Herta talked to David about. I didn't hear much about it, but apparently they're testing a new floor.
Interesting.
Which is something we've seen with IndyCar. They added those front wing elements in 2018 at Pocono, which has been a thing that didn't really fix the problem. Supposedly last year they were testing new things to make oval racing better. Yeah, they messed up on ovals. But as far as F1 versus IndyCar, which is what this topic has gotten, which is what started the tangent of IndyCar oval racing. Definitely dirty air is a lot less in IndyCar, like you said. And definitely the driver matters a lot more in the racing, the overall product. I mean, the car still matters, but definitely not as much as F1. I mean, I think, you still have to have, obviously, because dampers are open in IndyCar, right? So you obviously have to have a team or an alliance that's put in a lot of R&D into their dampers and things that are open. But that doesn't mean, it's not that big of a difference to where obviously like a Dale Coyne can still win. And any given weekend, I'd say before practice, it's pretty much you have a idea of like 10 or 13 guys who could win versus F1 where it's, maybe 4 guys will have a shot, maybe 6, so,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not really relying on rain or other outside possibilities to make it not a 2-car dominant race. There's a lot of things like that in the racing.
Here's what I would love to see from IndyCar. My last note on the whole schedule thing, which I think was a great discussion. So if anybody has any any comments like that for future episodes, please ask them because I think that was quite interesting. We actually get to talk about
Gives us
something
a
for
lot
once.
of time to fill too, because obviously there's not a
Yeah.
lot of news going on right now.
I would love to see IndyCar be more experimental with their seasons, especially now under the Penske era. Maybe under the Holman George era, they had to be a little bit more conservative because that was sort of just the structuring of the series at the time. But I was kind of hoping under Penske that we would get more ambitious decisions with regards to the calendar.
Well, obviously we got COVIDed this year.
Yeah, that is true. Um, but the thing that really tipped that off for me was look at what F1 did during the pandemic versus IndyCar.
Right.
I can't knock IndyCar or anything. It's not like they did anything like horribly wrong, but you look at F1, they went to Imola, they went to Mugello, they went to the Bahrain Outer Circuit, they went to I forget it, they went to Turkey, where they went to Portimao, and when you look back at them, some of those races were actually the best races of the season. And who knows what tracks IndyCar could have gone to in a similar situation, and we could have learned, oh wow, that's a great race. We should keep that on the schedule, like
What
F1's
track?
doing with some of those tracks.
Because here's because like some tracks, like you'd think, when I think of tracks that we could have gone to that were different, I'd think like Watkins Glen. Well, we couldn't do that because New York had a whole
True,
thing. We
true.
didn't have any racing at Watkins Glen, you know. And then you look at the other tracks, like the tracks we didn't go to, like Richmond, um, and how Richmond isn't on the schedule anymore for this season. That's because apparently ISC, which is owned by NASCAR, um, kind of ended that, I guess. Um, so then, like, what tracks that aren't NASCAR owned and aren't having their own pandemic issues could we go to? And then you set like a track like VIR, like there's obviously already questions about whether Indy cars could even race there or not because of the safety.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just thrown whereas F1 had all these tracks ready to go that were FIA grade, or they've already raced there in the past, just things like that they could do. And here's the other thing about it, IndyCar, is if like remember in 2016, the first time they went to Watkins Glen, the reason that was the race that replaced Boston. And so what IndyCar had to do is they had to rent the track. That
Right.
wasn't like a handshake deal, like, we'll, give you this amount of money. And, basically it wasn't like they worked together to put on an event. IndyCar basically just rented the track and, paid Watkins Glen however much basically to have the track. And it wasn't, a deal that got worked out. It was just a quick replacement. And, IndyCar would have had to do that. And you also look at it's interesting because when you think about the budgets, and the biggest question about adding races in IndyCar always has been is when the sponsors pay, they pay, IndyCar owners already know exactly how much they need to run 17 races. And so for IndyCar to add more races, they'd have to get into an agreement with all the teams on whether or not, their sponsors would be able to pay for, an extra for that extra race, because some of these sponsors we've seen in IndyCar, like Gamebridge, for example, they signed a 3-year deal to run 3 seasons. Well, the first season's like 17 races, and let's say the next is like 19, and they're not ready to pay those extra races, So there's a lot of different things you gotta think about in these deals.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You bring up a good point there. But for the future, I would like to see IndyCar try some experimental
Yeah,
things. You have way, way, way more international interest in the series than you did back in 2008. So how
yeah,
come back in 2008 we were able to have a race at Gold Coast? I know I keep bringing up Gold Coast, by the way, but I think that race, right now is a track that it's not the same layout that they ran back in 2008. Supercars has been running a shorter layout. You might have to see what you can work with there. But I think that track, as long as you get rid of the supercar, jump curbs, I think that track could be a great finale for IndyCar. Look who you just got in that series racing for Team Penske, a
Mhm.
driver who was in supercars for however many years.
Literally, V8 supercars like Dale Jr.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
found that out.
exactly. And if you did a race like that, obviously it would either have to be the season opener or the season finale. Likely season finale because you know that's when it would line up with a supercar schedule, or even like Andrew said earlier, Newcastle. I know he was probably kind of joking, but I think that could be an interesting track for IndyCar. It's a little bit tight, but I certainly wouldn't object to seeing IndyCar try something like that. Just something that's okay. So the only concern with that is if you have that race as a finale, I don't know what time that would be running for us, but
I don't like the finale in an American series being in Australia though.
you're kind of right. But
This is
but
a
I just want to
Midwest
see.
series.
I understand that, but I do want to see them like try more experimental things.
Remember when they were going to go to China? Remember when they were going to go to Brasilia? Oh, who remembers Brasilia?
Yes,
Oh my God.
but
We
there
could
are
go. I mean, the argument for going to Brazil got my mind rolling on Brazil. The argument for going to Brazil kind of got lost when Elio stopped running full time and now TK is part time.
well, okay. So your argument was that you have a Midwest series, but what state has the finale been in over the past decade?
Yeah, and I complained about that too. I complain about that too. That's on the West Coast.
That's where my realistic opinion was Gateway. I think it's snap dab, or not. The center is obviously Indianapolis, but you're not going to have a season finale at Indianapolis, and if that's their idea, then please don't do it because I don't want another road course race there.
Hmm.
But
That's what everyone's been like arguing for is make the GP the finale. Which is also the boomers. They're like, we don't need another race at IMS in the month of May. That's sacrilegious. We don't need that.
but you had back in 2011, you raced at Twin Ring Motegi.
Surprised
Mike, you
Honda
remember.
hasn't tried to bring that back, especially with Sato popping off in the last couple years.
Yeah, I mean, try some new stuff. I'd be curious to see how much it would hurt the small teams, but think 2008 was right after the merger between Kart and the IRL, and
Those Champ Car teams somehow did something.
yeah, and that was in the middle of a recession, and we were able to go to some international races even through the recession. So I don't know, something to consider. All I know right now is that they have a stronger international audience than they probably ever did back then. And so they're going to have to, I hope that they can capitalize on it with some eye-opening event, because right now, while I don't have anything against their current schedule, I think that it's still pretty conservative, and I think once we sort of ease back into regular life, so to speak, I would like to see them just throw a track out there that we're like, whoa, check that out. That wasn't really expected. Every year the IndyCar schedule comes out, it's like, yep, oh look, they moved the Barber date, or they moved the Mid Ohio date. It's like, all right, I haven't seen. The last time I was genuinely surprised by an IndyCar schedule, and this wasn't even when they had dropped the schedule. It was when they did the Boston GP announcement, which obviously, how'd that go? Don't remind me of it. But that was the last time I was genuinely surprised by an IndyCar track announcement. So I would love to see something like that again. That's my only plea to Roger and company.
Please, Roger, Northeast, Roger, please.
Yes, and
There's no reason.
get a race back in the Northeast no matter what. I don't care if you just want to do Watkins Glen, Pocono, Loudon. I don't care. Just one track, because
Go to Pocono.
you can say IndyCar doesn't have an audience in the Northeast, but it's like, all right, well, so what about the people who are interested? The closest IndyCar race to me right now is in another country, and it's in a place called Toronto, which, by the way, is like 8 hours away from me. You know what I should have brought up when we were doing the whole schedule idea was, what about Montreal? That would have been an interesting pick as well. I think IndyCar would really work there. But it's too late for me to backtrack on that. But yes, race in the Northeast, please. People,
Pocono.
Pocono, Watkins Glen,
We should
whatever
be
you
going
gotta
to
do.
Pocono.
Pocono became more of a liability in their final couple of seasons than.
We need to do 3 wide starts and give them the green when they're in 4 and let them spread out. What a novel idea. They did that when they came back to Pocono, and it worked. We did because when IndyCar brought back Pocono, they also were doing Fontana, so that brought back like the triple 500-mile race thing. So we did 3 wide starts at all those tracks. And it was great. It's awesome.
Couple
Started
last
3 wide and 4. It's great.
Couple last talking points here before I wrap the episode up. Cam Wolfers said IndyCar has a Steinbrenners now, which obviously that's a huge name in New York. You know, you could probably maybe swing something on that front with them
Take over
promoting.
the track.
Oh yeah, the F1 New Jersey, of course. Go back to Meadowlands. Let's do that. Oh,
That's literally MetLife now, isn't it?
yeah, it is.
Like, isn't like that like can't exist, can it?
No, it was a joke.
Yeah, I know, but like I was just thinking about it.
And then the last thing was Macaulay Davies said maybe a track slot where it changes every year. And that was a question I was actually going to ask you when we were talking about the schedule is would you be all right with the finale changing every year like it does in NASCAR now?
Well, it basically doesn't in NASCAR, but it should.
I thought they were going to Vegas this year.
No, it's Phoenix.
Again? I thought
Still Phoenix. Yeah.
Oh, I thought
They
they
just like
switched to
toyed.
Vegas.
So this is something that NASCAR has like toyed with the idea, or some people have suggested it, and I agree with it. You know, because here's what the NFL does with the Super Bowl is great, because basically what you're doing is if your city wants the Super Bowl, at this point you pretty much have to put money into renovating your stadium. Which what's that do? It makes, you know, across the board venues in the NFL better. So if you did something like that in auto racing, where let's say, you know, Phoenix just did the big renovation of moving the start finish line, the new grandstands, the new camping spots, a whole new garage, all that stuff, all the stuff they did, and they got the championship finale. Which, you know, if you put that much money into your track and put that much of an investment into hosting races in NASCAR, then you probably deserve it.
Nobody
So,
in
I
hell
mean,
is pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into renovating tracks for an IndyCar finale, though. I'll just say that out front.
we give them the incentive.
It's not gonna work. Nobody's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'll do that." I don't know why I just went for the southern accent there, but nobody's gonna pour money into renovate. You know, the Super Bowl has quite a bit more negotiating power than IndyCar, I think. I'm not positive about that, but I'm fairly certain that they do. And even NASCAR, you know. I don't think NASCAR is going to get tracks to renovate their amenities just to host the finale. You know, Phoenix kind of did it, but
I think it's just a trend that you can kind of, you know, start, you know,
I don't.
just and then each year take it to a different city and promote it in that city. And even if it's a street race, even if it's a, you know, just something different, you know,
But it
every year.
has to be
It's
prime
an
time in
idea.
my eyes. Has to be prime time in
I
my
don't,
eyes because it's just like weird to have a finale at 4 p.m. It's just my
I don't
opinion, but
know if it's on the West Coast, which is also dumb.
all right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Rain Race Podcast. If you've enjoyed it, appreciate you hitting the like button. Supposedly it helps with the YouTube algorithm. I'm not too sure about that. But you can catch us tomorrow, as I always say, on podcast platforms anywhere, whenever I get around to actually uploading that. Usually in the past couple of weeks, it's been Wednesday. Like very, very early on Wednesday at like midnight, 1 a.m. that I've actually done that. So just look around for that. It will be up there at some point. And you can follow us on Twitter at Rain Race Podcast. It's the link on the screen. You can follow us on Instagram too. Same handle at Rain Race Podcast. Once again, you can go check out Kyle's channel, which is Racing Nation TV. Should be linked in the description. And we will see you next week for another episode of the Rain Race Podcast. Hope to see you all then.